Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson, and of course on this show we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and what we know, of course, is an aging population. And before I introduce our guest today, which I'm very excited about, I want to let everybody know that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement and elder care management organization that has a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for seniors in receiving proper care and supervision. So whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential, or memory care, get the necessary advice from a senior care advisor in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you could go to the website at seniorcareauthority.com. And I also just want to thank everybody for all their support. So many of you have gone on and subscribed to our podcasts for free on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker. Many of you have downloaded the free app on your iPhone or Android phone. And so thanks so much for your support. Let your friends and family know as well, because we want to get the word out and help educate people. And speaking of that, we got someone who I know well. He's just a wonderful guy. His name is David Knepler. David is a sales director at Drake Terrace. Drake Terrace is an independent, assisted, and memory care community, all three, located in San Rafael, California, which is just north of San Francisco. David has over 10 years' experience counseling and guiding families through the sensitive steps of joining an older adult community. David holds the state of California issued RCFE, which stands for the Resident Elderly, and he holds an administrator's license. He graduated from San Francisco State's Applied Gerontology program in 1992, and he has served on the board of directors of the Marin Alzheimer's Association and the West Marin Senior Services. David also led an Alzheimer's support group for caregivers for over 4 years now. So, David, I'm thrilled to have you on the Aging Boomers. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Frank. I appreciate your reaching out to me.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you on, and I know we've worked together here in the area, so I know how knowledgeable you are, and I want to kind of extract some of that knowledge. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little more just about Drake Terrace, and I know it's part of a national group called Kisco Senior Living, so maybe you could give us an overview.
Sure, thanks. Drake Terrace is a month-to-month rental community, so I'm sure your listeners in various states have all different models of senior communities that they're looking at. Ours is month-to-month. We have apartments. We have 123 apartments altogether. 13 of those apartments are private memory care studios. So, and those residents in memory care have their own apartment, their own bathroom, but it's set up so that there is a communal activities going on all the time. It's a shared dining room and a shared activity area. There's a secure outdoor area, so residents can mingle. And the whole concept, we call our memory care section Connections, and the idea is severalfold. One is that they're connecting with each other, they're connecting with staff, and then we're also looking at what ways to enhance what connections are still there for them cognitively. In fact, our staff and our assisted living and independent residents often are down there volunteering and doing things. So, for example, we have one of our staff people goes down there and teaches Spanish, and which is pretty impressive when you think that these folks our residents down there have dementia, most likely Alzheimer's, but the thrill that they feel when they're able to say Buenos dias when they're able to say "Como está?" I mean, we're looking for ways to keep those connections sparkling. So that's our memory care section, and that's relatively new for us. Mm-hmm. We also have 24 independent apartments, and those are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. They all have balconies or patios. They all have cooking areas. Those residents there are welcome to participate in all the activities that we offer at Drake Terrace, but at the same time, they have the option of having a meal plan or not having a meal plan, having a housekeeping plan, not having a housekeeping plan. But the common denominator is that they're social and they want to be around other people. And then we have 86 assisted living apartments. Those are studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And those residents can, again, have no services. They will have 3 meals a day, weekly housekeeping, weekly personal laundry, most utilities all included. And then from there, they can add on if they need help managing their medications, help getting showers, they need help getting dressed. So it's a range of people in those apartments who might need some help from our staff or might not need some help from our staff. But their common denominator is they want to be in a licensed assisted living apartment. So if and when the time comes that they need help, it's there for them 24 hours a day. So Drake Terrace we're finishing up, Frank, our 25th year. We've had a year-long calendar of parties. We got 1 more coming up in December, and we will be capping off our 25 years of being part of the Marin County senior communities. Kisco Senior Living came into existence in 1990. We're family-owned. The overall president of the company, his name is Andy Kohlberg, Kohlberg. Kisco has a little bit over 20 properties. It's on a different track than a lot of the other senior living communities out there, and that Andy says, we don't want to be the biggest, we just want to be the best. He visits every property every year, at least once, if not more than once. He has about half the properties Kisco has are on the West Coast. The other half are in the East Coast or scattered in some other states like Utah or Hawaii or Texas. And the hallmark of a Kisco property is focusing in on the needs of the residents and the needs of the staff. So it's a balancing act. And for example, at Drake Terrace, our executive director has been here almost 25 years. Our lead nurse has been here over 20 years. Close to 25% of our staff's been here 10 years or more, and about 40% of the staff's been here over 5 years. So the idea being is that residents and families hate turnover. They like knowing that the same person is going to be in a position to give them the same answer 5 years from now, and that's what Kisco focuses it on, is always focusing in on meeting the needs of the residents and finding out that if you keep the staff happy, that goes a long way of keeping the residents happy.
Right. So, one thing in case people want to look it up, and, you could certainly share the website with people, but your community is called Drake Terrace. Actually, your communities throughout the country each one has its own name, correct? Even though they're part of the Kisco family, right?
Right. So to find out about those communities, the best way there is to go to KiscoSeniorLiving.com, and that'll lead you through a whole map of the communities. You just pop in your zip code or the zip code of where you're thinking about, and those communities will populate. And that's the best way to contact Kisco Senior Living. The other thing you could do is call them at area code 760-804-5900. That's 760-804-5900. Our home office is in Carlsbad, California. And again, the website is Kisco, Kisco, seniorliving.com. Drake Terrace is life at draketerrace.com. and you'll find our floor plans, our pricing, all sorts of nice video about us. And our phone number is 415-491-1935.
Great.
415-491-1935.
Perfect. All right. So let's talk about the various levels. All right, because I think it's, for those that have not encountered looking for a place for a loved one to live, some don't realize that there's these levels like you have at Drake Terrace, and they do exist throughout the country. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about, you have independent, you have assisted, you mentioned memory care. So let's take a look at each one separately and the type of people that you feel would benefit in these particular levels.
Sure. And if you don't mind, Frank, maybe we can use this as a primer for everybody in the country, just kind of
exactly
what all this vocabulary means. So even taking it back a step, there is also probably throughout everyone's communities in the United States what's called senior apartments. Mm-hmm. And that's really the first entry level. That's the basic level. And that is the only thing that people really have in common there is that they're over the age of 55. And from that point, it can go off in a number of different directions. Is there a communal dining area? Are the utilities included? But basically, senior apartments are going to be the least expensive route for someone who's just wanting to come out of their own house into a common, share a space with other people. They might have their own apartment. They might be shared housing. But that's the entry level for a lot of people. The flip side of that is that you're going to have limited services. You're going to have limited activities, limited transportation, and you're going to be completely independent. You're not going to have access to any kind of caregiving. But for many people in the United States, that's the best financial option for them, and that's also just who they are right now. They don't really need much more than just sharing a space with people. So that would be called senior apartments.
Yeah. So let me just stop you there for a second. So, wouldn't you say that the people that are probably more attracted to this, what you're calling senior apartments, or could be called independent living, 55 and over communities, wouldn't you say that these are people that maybe a spouse has passed and the children don't want mom to live at home. Maybe they're just tired of cooking and taking care of a house and taking care of the lawn. Would you say those are some of the reasons? And maybe what are other reasons people would want?
I think those are some of the reasons. I think the cooking part in a senior apartment, that person still might be responsible for cooking. I think you're right about the rest of it, that they want to be free of the property, of maintaining a property. They want to be free of, they're lonely. And in some instances, it's motivated by an increased, a pretty good real estate market. So they want to move the house when they can. The other thing is that depending on whether they're in an urban area or a non-urban area, transportation might be an issue. So maybe I think the reason that most people would move into an over 55 apartment is, to kind of get some of the burdens off their back. They might not get the cooking burden off their back, but they're certainly going to get rid of, the lawn and property taxes and those kind of things, and also be able to fetch something for their house at a good time. Okay,
great. So now we're going to get into the next level, all right? And the next level, the generic term is assisted living. And when we talk about assisted living, I think it's important for people to know that assisted living throughout the country, not just California, not just Drake Terrace, but throughout the country is licensed. So they have to have any type of where you're providing care for somebody else and providing a place to live, you need to be licensed by the state. So I think it's important people to distinguish the difference, that if they're living totally independently in a place, that location may not be licensed. Okay, but again, so I think it's important for people to know. So why don't you kind of get into what assisted living is, kind of what falls under assisted living, and I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks. Right, and as you mentioned, every state is going to have their own protocol for what that licensing means, and also, how often they inspect, and how thorough a job they do of protecting older adults living in assisted living. It is in the state of California. If you are a licensed assisted living community, then you are required to provide 3 meals a day, and most likely you're going to be providing ongoing housekeeping. You're going to be covering a certain amount of utilities. You might be offering laundry to be either included in the rent or available for an extra charge. You will have some level of transportation available. For example, Drake Terrace has an outstanding transportation program. It's not required by the state, but a smaller assisted living community still will help somebody make arrangements. And I think the biggest differentiator between a small licensed assisted living community, which could be very nurturing for someone, maybe there's only 6 people living there, and the larger places, the amount of activities. The state of California requires that the larger communities have an active activity calendar that is posted. And so, for example, at Drake Terrace, we have because of our mix of independent and assisted living residents, we have to provide a really thriving activity calendar. So we do things like that are kind of outside the norm that one would expect. We sponsor, for example, the local Marin Shakespeare Company. We also sponsor a theater company. So our residents get free tickets and transportation there. We have book clubs. We have live music. We meet with the residents to see what they want to do. Do they want to go to a ball game? Do they want to go to the ballet? And so when you have a certain amount of people living at your community, you're able to offer things just because you have the numbers to make it worthwhile. But basically what gets to the heart of assisted living is that you have staff available 24 hours a day to help with some basics, bathing, dressing, medication management, transfer assistance, grooming, and you have the ability to assist people, not just call 911 if there's an emergency. So what happens for people in their own home is, particularly people who are becoming a fall risk, for example, they fall. If someone is aware that they've fallen, then but maybe it's the typical, a lot of times we find that there are couples who are 90 years old, the husband falls down, and he's 180 pounds or 200 pounds, and the wife is under 90 pounds. She's not going to be able to lift him up. She has to call. She has to call 911 to come out. That doesn't happen necessarily at a licensed community. At a licensed community, the staff is able to evaluate whether it's in the best interest to call 911 for the person, or this person has fallen. They're a reliable reporter. They say nothing hurts me, and you can help get them back up. And also there's other things that we can do. You find that a typical older adult, as they add more and more medications to their regimen, can get very confused as to what to take when. So we can do medication management. And then that way you're preventing some medical situations from developing, because you're getting you're administering the blood pressure medication at the right time. You're observing the person taking maybe their memory enhancement medications. And at the same time, and this is the big thing about nationwide in assisted living, you are providing a really balanced nutritional dining options for people. So that's another thing that we see in older adults who've come to Drake Terrace, is that they have suffered nutritionally. They're not cooking for a family anymore. They may not even be cooking for a spouse anymore. So they're relying on fast foods or frozen foods. And a lot of times, just by correcting their nutrition intake, their vitamin intake naturally, some of the issues that have happened for them before go away. But the biggest thing really is social. What I have found, Frank, when I talk to people, when I do public speaking, is I talk about the role of houses in society. Houses initially existed as shelter. They stood to insulate us from the evils of the world. They gave us four walls around us and were a protection for us. Well, for a lot of places in America, once you stop driving, once your friends have moved away or they've stopped driving, once your spouse has passed away, once your kids have kind of started developing their own lives, well, that house has gone from insulating us to isolating us. Right. And that's not good for our brains, and that's not good for our spirit. We are at heart social beings, and so we need to be around other people. And that's where you really find that, we can talk a lot about the various things that we can do for our brains. We can do brain fitness programs, we can do Lumosity, we can do crossword puzzles, but really the best thing for us is to talk with other people. The not knowing what that other person is going to say next keeps our brain sharp, keeps our brains on edge, and that's the best thing. It's, we're not going to stop people from developing dementia. We're not going to stop people from developing Alzheimer's. We're not there yet medically in this world to understand how to do that, but we can certainly give ourselves an advantage by being around other people.
Yeah, no, that's great. We've got just a few minutes left, and I wanted to get into that last area of care that you have. So you kind of talked about the independent, 55 and over. You discussed assisted living, and you now have that third option, if necessary, memory care. So why would somebody who, let's say, is in your assisted living area, okay, why would you maybe suggest to the family that, hey, maybe we need to move mom into our memory care area? What is the memory care area, and why would someone need to move there?
In our memory care community here at Drake Terrace, there are 13 residents, and most of the time there's somewhere between 2 and 4 staff people down there. So they're getting a really nurturing, hands-on experience. Whereas in our larger setting with 83 assisted living apartments, we might have folks who have experienced some cognitive decline, but overall they're still safe in their own apartment, and they can still get something out of our larger activities. They can still get, they're not overwhelmed in our exercise classes. They're able to order off of a menu. They're able to appreciate Shakespeare or going to the theater. And when we work with families to say, we think we really should start looking at memory care for your loved one, it's because that person is beginning to not thrive as much in the larger setting. Maybe they're beginning to sundown. Maybe they're beginning to ask the same questions over and over again. Maybe they're beginning to get anxious and panic at 6 o'clock at night. Where is my apartment? Where do I live again? And again, those are folks that thrive in a memory care section, whereas in assisted living, they're not thriving. They're not getting their level of anxiety is getting so heightened that they can't relax. And so I think being in memory care, being in an area where their staff is totally devoted to their needs, just brings joy back to them.
And the whole goal here is to keep people safe. And they may not be as safe in assisted living or independent living, but they would be safer in a memory care environment, and that's a key as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, whether sometimes if they're living in their house that they've lived in for 30 years, they might start to wander. Same thing that's no different than an assisted living or an independent living community. If the person's beginning to make unsound decisions about where to be, then that's probably an indication that they probably best be served in memory care.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you have all those levels. I mean, I always I'm in the business, and if someone even is independent, but they're at an age and they might be starting to feel the aches and pains, they're moving a little slower. It's always nice to have them be in an independent location that also has those other levels, so they don't have to go move again. That's
exactly.
The advantage of a place like yours. So, so appreciate everything you do, David, and thanks so much for joining us. Any words of wisdom or anything you want to leave our listeners with at all?
No, I think that I think there's two kinds of members of your audience. I think there's the older adult themselves, and then there's family member or friend. I think that bless everybody. It's just like if you're a family member or a friend, every older adult needs some kind of advocate, and thank goodness you're in their lives. And for the older adults, just really appreciate where your life has brought you. And I think that retirement communities, whether it's Drake Terrace or Kisco property or somebody else, exist to take some of the burden off of you so that you can continue to thrive as you age.
Great. David Knepler, Sales Director at Drake Terrace, part of Kisco Senior Living. You could check out all their locations at kiscoseniorliving.com. And I want to thank everybody so much for joining us. Thanks for all your support. Keep those wonderful comments coming in and suggestions. And be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.